All right, so sounds like you're here. So, what I wanted to do with so at least Karazest here, just briefly talk over some of my future planning ideas, what I think the game needs next, and those type of things. So, with that in mind, I'm just gonna quickly go into another tab. I'm going to open up this thing. Yeah, it's a big document, but I'm not gonna read through the whole thing. It's available on my Discord. Probably not all grammatically correct, so feel free to roast it as you want. But essentially, I'm talking about long-term storyline and long-term what the game will be. Not even soon. um, I'll get into kind of what I want to do next, like starting on working after I get the Steam page up and like some trailers and some marketing stuff, because the next kind of few weeks, because especially I'm having a child in the next few weeks, stuff's gonna be crazy. But I'm gonna be probably working on some marketing videos, trailer stuff like that. But this is what I want the end game to be. So when you're playing the game, why are you playing this game kind of on a long-term perspective besides just getting better at Morse code, right? The technical difficulties were posted. Oh, for like him saying, "Hey, I'm streaming." Yeah, it's probable. It's quite probable. He posted at like 4:30. He was all right. I think, yeah, he was all right. Anyways, Chalta. So what is just kind of this stuff? So I'm going to go over what a procedural story is, and then how it kind of hooks into this clue system. So again, this is long-term, what the overarching kind of the whole game arc will be, right? And so the concept of it, again, is that the main game, it's going to revolve around the player. They're going to be, the idea is, in my mind, is that basically like they were a test subject that in this kind of dystopian future, they had like so much debt that they basically got their life forfeited, and then they were going to become a test subject in this lab. But then before that happened, big calamity happened on the planet, and they were kind of just like frozen in stasis, because they were frozen in stasis beforehand, but they were just kind of kept in stasis for the entire time. And when that happens, so then they stay in stasis for a very long time, then they eventually wake up. And they're woken up because one of these directors, the what I'm calling like the mentor director, has realized that the lab as a whole is like on the verge of a like total and utter collapse. Like it's just gonna break down. And so you only have a few more days to essentially get out and figure out things. Now the director themselves, the mentor, is not alive. They're like a digital kind of representation of that director. So they like had like these backups of themselves. And the idea initially was that they were just gonna hunker down, hide away, wait until the atmosphere on this planet was no longer like electrostatic, because the idea is that the whole planet was just completely glassed in the sense of the bombardment like vulcanized the surface. Then they put a whole bunch of like toxic gases and corrosive gases in the atmosphere, but it also made it electrostatic, which means basically you can't any electronics flying through it will just fry themselves. And this is covered in my other document that I have for the kind of like the backstory a little bit. And so with that kind of set, they were originally just going to hunker down there, hide away, you know, chill out for maybe a few centuries. And, you know, just once that figured itself out, then they were going to kind of emerge and they would be going on with their digital lives. But the mentors now realize that that's no longer possible. But they want to know what happened. And since they were just a backup of the director, they actually don't know what actually transpired in the events that just led up to the entire destruction. Because their backup was just before the events kind of unfolded. So with a bunch of that, like, preamble out of the way, basically the mentor role wakes up the player and initially kind of guides them through what I'm saying the tutorial zone, but it's more just like a starting zone. I'm going to try to make that as easy as possible to get through on like subsequent playthroughs. Kind of like how my current tutorial is right now. Like it's super quick to get through that stuff. And then you're just kind of going. And so there's probably going to be kind of like what my current tutorial is, just with like a small amount of little like preamble, lore explanations. But on subsequent playthroughs, you can probably just click through that and skip it. So you'll be getting going pretty quickly, because I do want this game to be replayable. It's very core to what I need from the game. I not to get distracted from this, but I have basically 3 pillars in my game. The first one being Morse code. That, like, I need to actually be teaching Morse code. If I'm not teaching Morse code, I'm not making this game right. It needs to be replayable, so that's the other pillar, is replayability. It needs to be replayable because if you're not replaying it, if you're only playing this as like a 4-hour game and then you're leaving it, you're not going to learn Morse code, right? Like, you need to actually be able to have something that you can replay and keep doing Morse code. And so, therefore, you need to have that. And the last one is the horror element, because that's kind of a major theme of it, and it also helps with the learning. Yeah, so I've toyed around with that, with the mentor potentially being at fault. The only consideration I had on that is that in the clue system that I've set up, the way it's set up, I'd have to create another zone for the mentor person, which I could do, but on some level, I'm more okay with them always being safe, but I could change that in the future, yeah. And yeah, so that's what I was saying, is that effectively there's, when you wake up, there's the mentor that's going to guide you through the starting zone. And realizing that they basically are doomed, right? This mentor person can't escape the planet, even though they could technically live forever. Their lab is going to get crushed and destroyed, and they're going to be trapped down there until their power runs out, basically. So they're doomed. They have no chance at survival. Even though they're effectively immortal, they're now facing mortality in the sense of electrostatic or dying out of electricity, because the lab's been completely, really destroyed. It's not like just ruined anymore. It's like utter collapse. And so all they want to know, basically, before they leave, before their doom, is what happened. Why did their glorious scientific planet, that was the pinnacle of all scientific innovation at a time, why did it explode? And why did, not explode, but like, why did it collapse in such a way? And so even though we know some of the ternary details about how the planet is like now destroyed, but we don't know what the events that came up and led to the destruction of it. And so this kind of comes to a system where I will have, I'm saying 4 to 6 right now. I'm still not entirely certain what size of pool works. So that's why I'm saying kind of a range. Probably 4 is probably what I'm going to go for first. and see how that feels. And then we will kind of figure out some things from there. And the idea is that I will hopefully, like, you're picking from 4, but I'll have more options than that. Again, depends on the scope and how long these actually take to build. Each individual character. They're probably not going to be like, in some ways, I'm going to try to make them not like dialogue-wise that different. They might just have like a little bit of a tweak on flair on like how they talk or something. And their zones, I think, will be a little bit different. Now again, single developer here, working on trying to not explode my scope. So we'll see how much of that I can accomplish in a reasonable time frame. At first, they're probably going to be a lot more similar to each other, but hopefully I can figure out ways of kind of making each zone that the director kind of has unique in some way. But again, we have the 4 characters. We're gonna then assign them 3 roles. There's either the mentor, which we've already talked about, and then there's the guilty one, and there's the innocent one. And now, first, I'm gonna say that the mentor cannot be guilty because those are kind of 2 different roles. But like we talked about a little bit earlier, that could be something that changes, but right now, there's only going to be 1 mentor role, and there's also only going to be 1 person guilty. Again, that could change in a future thing if I want. Maybe at the future changes, long-term DLC or something. I don't know. But I probably, at least at launch, I'm not going to commit to anything more than 1 guilty director because of how the clue system works, which I'll get into later. But the idea is that the mentor just wants to know what happened, like why, what was the cause, who did it, and like why essentially. And what they're offering you basically is, hey, you're this random test subject, you're gonna doom to die, but I'm giving you a chance. And if you figure out the cause of it, so that I can kind of just like mentally come to terms with it, I'll give you a rocket that basically has no electronics in it, but just like rocket fuel, and it'll shoot you up in the atmosphere, and you'll maybe survive for a couple of days out there while you send out a distress signal and hopefully get rescued. But it's a better chance at survival than, you know, being crushed in this lab. So that's kind of the player like motivation behind finding it. They're not just curious as well. They also have like their survival at stake. And okay, so yeah, again, I said dialogue wise, innocent and guilty directors are gonna act mostly the same. I don't want it to have to be like, oh, you have to like pay attention to these dialogue points. I also feel that if I'd made it so that like there's like certain tells on a particular director, that once you know that, that's all you're looking for. That's definitely doing the issue there. And instead, instead I'm going to use this clue system, which I'm going to explain a little bit lower. And so the way the game is going to be set up, so I'm going to maybe do this in Paint. Paint. Just want normal Paint. Paint 3D is too much for this. Can I make this bigger? Bigger. Make it bigger. All right. So, essentially, you're going to start out in this little starting safe zone, right? And then there's going to be a bunch of smaller zones that you're going to traverse through. And then the idea is that you then get into... Yeah, it's a kind of art, I guess. So this is like the start safe zone. This is like the safe zone that we start out in, right? Right? Okay. Then you have a bunch of just like intermediate zones. Basic exploration levels. Basic exploration levels. Okay. Why? Okay. Oh, well, that's now there. Let me just move it a little bit lower. Like, there we go. All right, so a couple of levels. I'm thinking about 4 probably, and then there's the 5th level, which is gonna be where you find the director. I move this. There we go. Director level, right? And so this is where you're gonna find the director and kind of meet with the first one. So in the first, this is gonna be the mentor, right? So I should just maybe write mentor director level. Okay, right? So mentor director level, you meet that director, like in the flesh. Now, this might be a little spoilery, but I don't, you know, you're gonna get spoiled. You're watching the development of this game. There's like, to some degree, it's gonna be a spoiler, but it's also caveat scope. If I find that this is like a 3-month endeavor to make each one of these things, I'm not going to be doing it. But my concept here is that each mentor has a backup that they're kind of like pure in, right? So they'll have this pure crystallized little backup. That happened before anything bad happened. Blah, 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 blah. But then there's also the actual flesh kind of the director that gets infected. I should make these probably not square circles, but whatever. Guess then there's the actual corrupted director, right? Now, can I move this, please? Please, please. Thank you. But this one is uncorrupted, I guess. Right? And so my idea, again, caveat, scope, is, okay, really? When you get to the mentor director level, I did this wrong again. Oh my god, how many times can I do this wrong? What? Is it always just, oh, it's always down, okay. Is that you then do a little boss battle. And the directed, and then if you beat that, I should make a little bunch of arrows on wrong arrows. This, okay. Boom, 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 right? So in these ones, you're collecting stuff, doing stuff, you get to the mentor director level, which at base will still kind of look like a basic exploration level, but also has a zone in which you find the corrupted director in some form, and then you have to defeat them in order to like get their backup that is uncorrupted. Make sense so far? Hopefully that's okay. Now again, if this corrupted director boss battle thing is crazy hard for me to do, in that like just in time and effort, you might just find a director backup, but obviously I feel like that was way less satisfying than actually having some sort of little boss battle. And I really want to, if I can, right, like the idea on this is like you should be able to, I should be able to make like environment things that have the letters on them, and then you just use the Morse code to like hit the director with it, or you know, you have to interact with certain pieces in the environment to, you know, avoid his attacks and stuff like that, right? So you're using the Morse code in the fight effectively. So that's the idea there. This is definitely something though that could go off the rails, because it's like very bespoke content. Each director would have his own boss battle and be unique in that aspect, right? So that's going to take a little bit of time, but I think that would show off so cool if I could pull it off. I'll also have to find really cool people to visually, like, I'll have to find some good models for the directors because they should look cool. If I pay any artist for making models, that's probably where I would do it. But yeah, okay. So then you find the mentor director level, you get their backup, and the idea on these backups is that the throw regrown body parts. It's Samuel said. Yeah, I mean, okay. Maybe not that gruesome, but I was gonna just like, there's gonna be like, you know, smashy lever thingies that you can like lure them into, and then you trigger the Morse code, and then it smashes them, and things like that. I think would be cool. All right. So then you beat them, and so this is kind of like the first act, right? Act 1, right? And it's kind of like what my tutorial, what I'm kind of talking about, like tutorial intro area. But the nice thing about this, the way I'm trying to again set it up, is that because the mentor can be different each time, and the safe zone to actual like pure tutorial part should be fairly short, I hope that this will feel great when you feel good when you're redoing it, because it's different, right? Like it's a different person that you're gonna be fighting each time, so it's not the same in that way. So that's kind of how the first little bit is gonna go. Let me just now move this a little bit over here, and I kind of know the scale of this thing. All right, okay. And so this is where we transition kind of into the Act 2 section. So we're gonna find an let's switch up our shapes here a little bit, okay? We're gonna do this one. So then we find kind of like a more hub safe zone. After we've defeated the first director, we find this other area that's just basically like a nicer safe zone, like it's just bigger. And this is where we introduce the fact that there are, you know, at my initial area, 3 more director zones, right? So zone 1, director zone 2, and director zone 3. Okay. Right, and so you're gonna have to do all of these, but the order is up to you basically at this point. You could do this one first, you could do this one first, or you can do the other ones first. And you also don't have to do them all at one time, right? You'll be constantly going through these zones. You'll find the like return portals, and you can kind of return back to the hub zone. But each of these zones independently will kind of act like this, right? So there's going to be a bunch of levels that you have to just explore. You find the director, and you beat the director, and then you get their backup. After you probably beat the first one, I'm not sure if I want to introduce this right at the beginning of Act 2, or I might introduce it after you beat the first. And I'm just gonna write, just each zone can be done in any order, right? Okay, there we go. So what was I saying? Act 2. All right, so maybe after you defeat a director, or maybe just after you've freed kind of like the first mentor, this is when I'm going to start introducing what I call the clue system. And so might as well just go back to this document for a moment. I just throw both of these out. Yeah, I can do that. It's cool. Just maybe move that over so I can just zoom bit. Okay, I think that's good enough. We'll just move it a little bit over. Okay. So the clue system. And effectively, I call it the clue system because it's basically the board game Clue. If you're thinking about this in the purest sense of, you have to go to a physical location, you then posit a hypothesis, and then the game tells you if you're right or wrong. And the exact way that works, right? So again, the elements that you have to figure out to solve the kind of cause, the initial cause of the collapse, is you need to know the place that it happened, the director that caused it, and kind of like this forbidden technology that they were toying with that ended up causing the whole thing. And so the place in this case will be a zone that is further than the director zone. So one thing I guess I should define is each of these kind of director zones. If I'm, where did I make, oh, okay, now the shapes are in this little thing, I see. Okay, so the director zones will start off with a bunch of little intermediate levels again. Oh god, okay, let's calm down there, little shapey. Whatever. There's again 4 little intermediate zones, and then there's the mentor zone, or there's the director zone, right? So we have, with my arrows, little arrow, little arrow, little arrow, little arrow. Okay. And then again, I'm just gonna I'll make a little square around this. I need to make this smaller too, so let's do that because I realize I'm gonna run out of space. But first, just do text. Act 2 director zone format, just for example. Okay. So we go image, select. I'm just gonna take this and just size it down a little bit. Okay. That's about half. That should be fine. Okay. So again, we have some just kind of like basic. I'm not gonna say basic anymore. I'm gonna say exploration level. But again, the kind of concept between these ones, it's a different zone. Hopefully each zone, I'll just write this on. Each zone will hopefully have some flavor change to it. Oh, come on. Come on. Each zone will have some flavor change to it. Okay. So come on, i.e. like which I'll get into, just like slightly different maybe some slightly different monsters, although that's kind of more scope. Or just like monsters are, don't click off it, don't click off it, tougher versus X, but weaker versus Y or something. Things like that. I don't know. Tougher versus X, but weaker versus Y. Stuff like that. That's the kind of idea. But again, we'll fight the director here. So at level 5, you fight the director, and then we have more exploration levels after that now. And so when you fight the director, there's always going to be a portal back to the hub world, so you can kind of reset yourself. Maybe I should make that into a shape. Let's see. This one. And can I move it? Yeah. There we go. Portal to hub world. I guess I shouldn't say hub world. It's probably you mother. You. Portal to hub. I guess. Yeah, I'll just say hub. Okay. You can go back to the hub world there. There might be one in the middle too. I've yet to figure that out. But you beat the director. Again, another little boss battle. Corrupted director, doing all that stuff. Then there's more exploration levels. And in one of these... I'm gonna put the text. One of these levels will contain forbidden technology. So this is where you find the forbidden technologies. The idea on these things is that they're going to be kind of like a corrupted buff, if you've ever played those games. Well, they'll give you a benefit, but also have a drawback for the most part. But also, you'll have to use these in part of the clue system to, figure out what happened there. And so you can use these, you can kind of like equip them. I think you're probably only going to be able to equip one at a time, is probably what my current idea is, or that they could just, I'm going to have probably some inventory limits, so you'll probably only be able to equip a certain amount of them, or they'll take up more of your inventory if you do equip them. So either you'll only have one, or maybe they'll take up some space in your inventory, and maybe you don't want to have too many of them in that way. But again, you'll find one of them kind of in these higher exploration levels. And I guess I should say more difficult exploration levels. So the idea here is that I don't really want people completely clearing out like zone 1. So they're not going to go all the way through here, beat the director, and then just keep going. Ideally, they should actually, beat the director, come back, and then maybe check out zone 1, and then beat that director, and then come back, and then maybe beat zone 2, and then kind of like slowly push out each one. So the difficulty on these ones is going to ramp up a lot more, so it's going to hopefully encourage people to go back, do the other ones a little bit, and kind of gain some more stuff to tackle on these more difficult ones, where you'll find the corrupted stuff. But lastly, then you'll find the like, we'll call it's like the flashpoint room. So this is like a potential area that it could have started. And the thought here is that effectively a lot of these other directors were toying with some sort of forbidden technology. There was a bunch of rooms or a bunch of areas where that once the first like cataclysmic event happened, it basically broke down a bunch of other things, and then caused a chain reaction of another person, another like technology to go rampant and break things and do other things. So no, a lot of the like innocent people were still kind of toying around with, you know, maybe a little bit of sketchy stuff, but they at least were taking it mostly secure. Now they didn't cause the initial break, but in this sort of kind of calamity scenario where a really big like event happens, they weren't quite prepared for that thing to contain their low technology, whatever they were toying with. So basically every single thing ended up breaking as a kind of domino effect. So there's these rooms kind of basically where these type of things happened. And that's where basically you'll find at the very end of each zone is you'll find one of these rooms. And the concept with this clue system is that there's like this, I don't know what to call it. Did I name what I call it? Receive an item that is capable of recreating the past if certain necessary elements are present, right? So you have this like box thing that, assuming certain elements are present, so if you can reach the flashpoint room, which is the room, the place, and you bring a technology, and you bring the director, a little like backup thing, and you plug all those in at that room, it'll tell you how many of those elements is correct, basically, right? So is this the actual end room? Is like this the initial room? Is it the actual right director, or is it the right technology? And the idea here is that it's gonna say a number out of 3 based on like how many you have right. And like, so if say if you got to this flashpoint room with a forbidden technology and a director, and you only had one of them right, it would only say 1 out of 3, right? And so then you have to kind of figure out, well, what of those 1 out of 3 things is the actual correct one, and you'll have to do some kind of iteration. So the concept is that if you don't have it all right, then you gotta get back to the hub world. I'm probably gonna have like a one-way portal. Right there, I guess I'll write it as a direction down. It should be down, I guess. Direction and shape. So let me know if there's anything confusing or it doesn't make sense so far. One-way portal back to hub. Now, lore-wise, I'm gonna have to make sense of why there's a one-way portal where every one other ones can be like portaled back and forth to, but that's my problem. That's not your problem. The idea, right, is you get to here, you can do essentially one hypothesis, and that's probably going to be limited by this like box thing. Only has enough power to like hypothesize once, and then you have to bring it back to the hub world to charge. So if you want to try this room out again, you have to go back to the hub world, you have to portal back to the director zone, and then you have to just run through these things to get back to this zone again. So it's kind of just like doing a loop. And depending if you even have the right room, you have to then go to a different zone and try to figure out which one is correct there. So it's kind of just like hypothesizing, testing it out, seeing what you're right, getting higher 2 out of 3 or 3, getting closer and closer until effectively you find the correct match. Addition. Okay, so addition. I'm not sure where I'm gonna put these. They might be in the more difficult. They might be a little bit everywhere. But you're gonna find effectively what these clue cards are, and these are gonna be kind of what I'm calling. It's like exculpatory evidence. So effectively, it says like this is not the thing, right? So you'll get certain things that prove that like, hey, this director was not even at the station at the time that the thing happened or something, or maybe he was like sick at the time, so he couldn't have been the one that caused the incident. Or there could be like a report that says this technology is like inert, it doesn't have any sort of dangerous capabilities to it, kind of proving that it was not the situation. Or a specific flashpoint room, it could be saying that like, hey, there could be a transmission or something that says that only after like the initial breakdown of stuff did their security measures fail and break. So then you know, like, oh well, it's not going to be that room. So you'll get a certain amount of these that you'll find in the world that will just then at least allow you to like cross out certain things and be like, okay, I don't need to test that one because I know that that one's not a possibility, right? So hopefully that means that you don't have to then suffer through, and because I guess there's 3 directors, there's 3 zones, and then there's 3 technologies. So that would be 3 to the power 3, which is 27 different possibilities, I guess, if I just have 3 guys here. Just having one that's cut out, effectively, I guess that reduces it by, is it 3 options? Or I guess it would be 3 times 3 times 2 if as soon as you remove one. So it's not always going to be the same amount, but like it does reduce quite a bit of your options that you have to deal with them. So it should hopefully help you not have to go through 20 such iterations before you kind of get to the end there. Yeah, does that make sense so far? You still with me, Karazest? Have I overloaded you with information? And hopefully, again, I'm gonna like, the reason why I'm kind of saying this out here is I do want to try to take this stream, probably make it into like a standalone highlight and present it on my YouTube just so that people will know a bit more detail. Because I feel like, obviously, I know how many people read things, not many. And so just having a video kind of explaining it, I think helps. But I think as well, there's probably stuff that this is very kind of technical, I think, in a degree. So having kind of more of a lore explanation and a visual thing does help, I think. So, and hopefully you're still with me. As I definitely could use just people saying that it's not totally crazy. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to have a shape. I'm going to have a little arrow. Maybe can I fill in that shape? There we go. Okay, cool. So find the guilty director, technology and zone. Then you proceed. Okay, don't break on me now. Proceed to Act 3, basically. And then I guess, well, actually, one second. I'm going to say, like, confront them to proceed to Act 3. So, assuming you find out who's guilty, you shouldn't have to, like, instantly confront them, because otherwise you might want to still explore some stuff. But basically, you'll come back to the hub zone. You'll tell the mentor person that, like, hey, this is what happened. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you won't go back to the hub zone. I think you actually. I want it to happen that in the flashpoint room, then it's like you kind of. It opens up this option or something or interaction where you can fully visualize it or something, or I don't know, do something. But it basically triggers the end game, which is there should hopefully be, again, this is scope permitting. I am merely a single person, and so I'm gonna try my best. But if I can, this is what I would like. I want the final boss, basically. Final. Now this should be same director style fight, but with additional elements of the technology and zone room or something to change it up. It's basically a bigger, badder version. Same director style fight, but harder with additional elements. Yeah, okay. Basically that, right? That's how that works. So you've now figured everything out. You're effective. Wrong arrow. You've proven you found the enemy and you've vanquished him once and for all. Then you have to escape. It's probably something with the final fight causing some, expedited internal collapse. So now the thing's gonna collapse in not even a few days, but it's gonna explode now in like 30 minutes. So you better run like hell to that little shuttle thing. So like escape to shuttle before lab collapses. And if you escape, then that's the game. That's the end of the game, right? It's kind of the should make that a different shape. Let's do a star, because you deserve a star at that point. You win game. Win game? No, win. Win game. Yeah. Oh god. Okay. All right. There we go. Sweet. So what do you think, Karazast? Is that a good flow to you? And again, the reason why I'm hoping that this setup works is that it makes each playthrough unique, right? And I hope I can deliver on the idea that procedural story actually like is effective in that concept, right? So even though like the major kind of points are are there and kind of the similar-esque, the people swap in and out, and you'll never know which person it is, right? Miscoding. So again, the sad part about me explaining all this probably as well is that this is not what I'm going to be doing next because of a couple of reasons. This is again kind of future planning, so you kind of know where this game is going. But there's two things that make me not want to do this like immediately now. I want to first do something else, which I'll talk about. But I think as soon as I do this, effectively what I'm going to be doing is gating the free version of my demo to Act 1, right? So you'll be able to play this, only this in demo. Because I think this definitely gives a clear indication of what the game is like. I might even let you get into the hub zone, but basically all these zones are going to be just locked. Like you're not going to be able to get into any of them in the demo version. But I kind of don't want to do a lot of work that's not going to be fully realized. Like they're not going to, if this is where they end of the demo, they're not even going to understand the clue system, right? The clue system isn't even introduced really until Act 2. And so I'd rather focus first on making sure that everything that is going to be in Act 1 really looks good. Again, that still incorporates a boss battle potentially. But I want to make sure all this exploration stuff is nice. You can see kind of progression in that area, and then you'll get to the boss battle, you'll finish that up, and then that's kind of like the end of the demo, and hopefully that makes people really want to buy it at that point. But I don't want to spend all this time making this because I think it's really awesome, but then I don't know if I'm comfortable selling this as an early access. I still have to figure out whether or not I do that. But basically, if I don't do that, I don't want to spend what will be like months probably fleshing this all out, making this nice and work, with no one being able to play test it and tell me how it feels, right? So I'd rather make sure that this is good and is kind of on the right track, and then I'm going to focus on this, which I'm really excited about, and that's why I want to be able to tell people about it. But that's where I'm going to eventually get going to, because I need to just like express like this is what I want, and this is how I hope the game ends up. But I need to first focus on what I'm thinking is combat. And the reason why is because, as KRS probably knows, I have way too many things to give me items, right? But I don't have enough things that actually have a meaning to buy, right? Right now I only have basically the stress upgrades and the permission system, which are cool, but you can buy those in like probably the first 4 zones, and then you don't have anything else to buy with the resources that you're gaining. I also feel like those 2 paths are very linear in how they work. So they're going to be the same each time if you play them like that, right? There's not going to be any interesting aspects for replayability there, which I really want to make sure are there. And so I wanted to add some form of combat into the game. I don't have like a document or anything to explain this, but yet at least. But the core concept is that I'm still going to make Steve, I guess I explained this kind of in my store page, which is where did I put store page? Store page. I kind of felt bad writing this because I haven't actually coded any part of this yet, but this is kind of the goal of the combat system, is that you're going to need to protect yourself. Ammo is going to be fairly limited, and there's also going to be things you can't defeat, i.e. Steve and Joseph are not going to be killable. You're not going to be able to just shoot them and kill them. Joseph especially, he's a freaking ghost. Your guns ain't going to work on him, right? Steve is he's just really tough, and he does not care about your bullets. Except maybe if you shoot him in the eye, he might be like, oh, that kind of stings a little bit. I gotta wipe that out of my eye, pick it out or something. And so he'll get like momentarily dazed if you shoot him in the eye. And you can maybe escape from him with that, but like you're not going to be able to kill him or knock him out or do anything like that to him. You hurt them emotionally. I mean, you hurt Steve emotionally every single time you run away from him. He's deeply hurt. Whenever, like, you know why he smashes those doors when you close them in? Because he's deeply, deeply hurt that you would put a door in front of him. It's not very nice. He just wants to love you. But, you know, you're getting in the way. You're putting up barriers between him and his love, and that's not okay. Yeah. I don't know if that is it's not serious at all, but yeah, that's kind of how I want combat to be. So obviously, with that said, there's going to be other things like I'm going to make like I don't know, maybe like rats or something, or kind of smaller things, but that's going to be like what you're probably going to be killing in the majority of cases. No worries, at least you got through the main part, right? Like that's kind of, this is probably where I'm going to wrap the explanation video of it up, but that's kind of like all of my statement of where I'm eventually going to get going and what I'm going to be focusing on next, which is the combat stuff, which is kind of funny that I spent like 95% of the time on where I'm eventually going and like 5%, not even 5% of the time on what I'm doing next. But it's because this I need to be prototyping and figuring out a lot more. But that is what I'm going to be kind of setting up next after I do like a couple of small little bug fixes. But yeah, safe drive home, Karazest. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, for anyone else that's watching this future YouTube video, thank you for watching too. Thank you. Bye-bye. This would be a great time for me to just like drop a Steve, you know? Bye-bye.